Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new F124 setup video. This time round we are here in the land down under for the Australian Grand Prix at Albert Park. Of course, this circuit saw a huge change in its layout a couple of years ago. It is now one of the highest speed circuits inside Formula 1, and Sector 2 is basically just one flat out section as well, which I think is absolutely incredible. Obviously, the new changes to the venue have meant that setups have changed rather drastically in the last couple of years, so today we are here to talk you through. Now, you've got to be a little bit careful around this venue as well. The curbs can be quite scary, and you need to make sure you've got a setup that is stable over those. So, of course, what we're going to do as always, there will be timestamps linked down below. We're going to showcase you a lap around the circuit, what you want to be aiming for, and then obviously we'll go into the setup, and then obviously you can see it all in one swift motion. I've been having quite a few questions from you guys about what to do with these setups, you know, for time trial and things like that. If you just want to set times on time trial, these setups aren't really for you. I would just go into the game and download a top leaderboard time and see how you get on. These are designed for races and league racing as well as career mode in particular. So if that sounds good, please do make sure you get yourself subscribed, and let's head out then onto the Albert Park circuit. Well, here we are then on the front straight from Albert Park. Yeah, this circuit, like I said, not the most complicated anymore in Formula 1, especially with the removal of some of the chicanes, but curb usage, it's really, yeah, the first track this season where you can attack a lot of the apex curbs. Heading down in towards turn 1, you're going to be all the way up in 8th gear. You want to be looking for that black box gantry on the outside and braking at the 100 meter board as you make your way into the apex. Of course, over one lap every time you're going to be wanting to try and get the front inside wheel over the apex curb, but of course in race trim you might want to try to avoid it there. You have to be really careful on the exit that you don't run out wide, otherwise you will pick up warnings and penalties very quickly. But yeah, 5th gear on the way through should be good, and you can actually really use this curbing on the exit there, this AstroTurf on the exit of turn 1 there. Of course, let the car open up wide as you make your way on the exit there. Open up with the DRS as well as early as possible, and again you can use all of that exit curb, and you really want to carry the speed out onto this second straight. Get the car back over to the left hand side as the circuit slowly arcs round to the right. Again, you want to be looking at the 100 meter board and the black box here ready for turn 3. This one I actually find very difficult to spot your braking point this year, so that's where I'm aiming for, all the way down into 3rd gear, but avoid the apex curb. As this corner is quite cambered, if you use the apex curb, it really does try and flick the back end round a bit too much, so I'm trying to avoid it. I'm not too worried if the front end washes out on the exit of the corner, but I'd say, yeah, you want to be trying to avoid getting too far over. Keep bringing the car over to the right hand side, short shift back a bit of 4th gear. In time trial, it's just about flat if you get it nailed. In race trim, you're probably either going to need to coast off or actually blip the brakes slightly through this next corner. And again, through turn 4, avoid the apex curb. It will just try and tip you into a spin there. Obviously, going through this car park section, you can really run the car out wide, but you want to keep trying to bring it back over to the left-hand side. And then just as you go under this black box, this next corner completely flat out in 6th gear there. Avoid the apex curb once again, and try to avoid the exit curbs as well there. It just costs you a little bit of momentum as you make your way in towards Sector 2. Get the car straightened up as the circuit moves around from either side, and then again as you make your way through here past the 100 meter board, just as you get out to the outside of the circuit, you'll be in 7th gear on the way in. You want to bring the car down into 6th, attack the curbs as best as possible, but try not to take too much apex, otherwise you will get grass on your tyres. And on the exit of the corner as well, open up the venue as best as possible. If you're struggling with trying to get the run through that corner, I would always say compromise your entry, not your exit. You really want to try and carry as much speed as you can out onto this new back straight. Of course, it's completely pinned out through here. You really are just trying to take the line of least resistance. You're going to go up into 8th gear, actually, just as you open up the DRS as well. And of course, you obviously go through the right, get the car back over on the left-hand side as well through this next corner, of course, probably before the 2 most difficult corners on this circuit. Just as you go under the gantry, you want to be moving away from the white line on the inside there. And I mean, yeah, through here inside F124, there is so much grip. Down 1 gear on the entry, you can take as much of this apex curb as you like. Down another gear on the exit, and then turn it in again. Attack the curbs on the exit, of the chicane there, of course. This year, and especially with this setup, I've really tried to make sure that you can hop over those curbs through that chicane and that you're not going to run into any problems there. And once again, you're back on the DRS in towards the slightly more technical final sector of the lap. Going past the 100-meter board, you're braking just at the 50. It's actually one of those weird corners where you want to brake slightly later than you think as well, because with that all-new red curb on the inside, avoid that at all costs. You will unsettle the rear of the car, you will get a lot of snap oversteer, and it's going to be really, really unpredictable there. I'm liking to use third gear through, but occasionally I've seen others trying to use second, and then use the exit curbing once again. It's basically my rule of thumb. I say it way too much, I know, in these videos, but apex curbs generally you want to avoid. Exit curbs you really, really want to be using on this game there. Back a bit of 4th, 5th, and then 6th gear. Again, in qualifying, this corner is completely flat in 6th gear, if you get the line right. In race trim, it's probably 5th with a blend of throttle as well, just because then you've got that bit of extra engine brake. You've got the weight over the front end to make sure that you're cornering nicely, because, of course, there is just a gravel trap on the outside of this corner, and it will really, really upset the balance of the car there. I'm really not using any of that curbing. Get the car back over to the right-hand side and braking just after you go under the gantry and past that white line there. 2nd gear for the penultimate corner of the lap, a bit like turn 3. I'm actually trying to avoid the curbing again, but I really don't maximize the exit of this corner, because really it is all just set up for the final turn there. So barely getting the car over the white line in the middle of the road. Back up into 4th gear on the exit. 5th gear as you try and get towards the DRS zone once again, using the curbing on the outside as you carry the speed up towards the start-finish line. Albert Park, by far and away the least complicated track we've done so far in this series. It is one of those ones that is easy to learn, but really, really difficult to master. And when you get a lap absolutely nailed that's right on the limit, it feels so, so rewarding. But yeah, let's head back to the pit lane then and talk you through the setup. Well, taking a look then, overall, we were 450th in the world, about 1.5 seconds behind the top times. Once I show you guys the lap, you'll see there was definitely a few extra tenths in it, but ultimately, you know, you do have to compromise quite a lot between a time trial and a race setup around this venue there. Having a look, though, at all of the figures, you can see 28-24 wing. I found, actually, there's quite a lot of discrepancy in what wing angles people are using around here. This, to me, felt like a decent middle ground. I've seen people running, you know, sort of as low as 22 front, 18 rear wing, and as high as like 34 on the front wing there as well. But 28-24 for me was where I was happy with it. If I was gonna say, if you want to have a lower downforce setup, I wouldn't go much lower than 24-21. And if you were really struggling through the corners with these wings, I would say go no higher than 31 and 28 there. Transmission settings, 45, 55, and then the engine braking on 30. This track really is about trying to make sure that you're pivoting around on the back end as well, but obviously you need that front end bite through the exits of corners, so obviously just allowing those wheels to spin up slightly less independently than we've seen at other circuits seems to be the way to go around here, especially in that final sector where you are trying to find a bit more traction. Suspension geometry, -3.2, -1.9 for the cambers, and then 0.8 and 0.08 and 0.07 on the toe angles. Again, you know, this circuit, there is a lot of rear traction dependent zones in Sector 1 and Sector 3, so just having to try and make sure that you've got the stability in the car, especially, you know, if you nick those curbs, you unsettle the car over some of the curbing as well. You know, you want to have a car that, yes, is quick, but also if you end up in a bit of a sticky situation, you can get yourself out of as well there. The suspension, actually very, very kind of extreme around this circuit. 31-13, 13 and 10 on the roll bars, and then 28-62 on the ride height. Like I said, the ride height actually is quite compromised, but it's just obviously when you've got a full tank of fuel on the car, maybe you've started the race on a set of hard compound tyres, the last thing you need to do is unsettle the car over the curbs through the fast chicane, find yourself in the gravel, 30 seconds behind all of your rivals with no chance of catching up. So if you're finding it that you're lacking a little bit of pace, but you're not having any problems through the chicane, I would say maybe lower this to like 25-55 and see how you get on. but ultimately this is what I felt most comfortable with around the circuit. And again, as always, you want a firmer front suspension than rear inside this game. That's just seemingly how the meta works, I think, because you've got so much front end. 97.54 on the brake bias. I've had a lot of questions, actually, about this. If you're struggling with front locking inside the game, lower your brake pressure and move your front brake bias lower as well. If you're running 50 brake bias and you're still having front end locking, then lower your brake pressure even more. But if you find that the rear end is starting to snap back out, maybe increase the pressure slightly, but also lower that front brake bias once again. But yeah, 97.54 is what works for me. And then on the tyre pressures, temperatures aren't too much of a concern here. Obviously, where you have got a lot of straight line sections, so 24.3 on the front, 21.3 on the rear. It is a very, very simple one-stop once again around this place. Mediums to hards. The soft compound tyres don't tend to work particularly well. So yeah, medium to hard is going to be the way to go. Pitting anywhere from about lap 12 to lap 14, of course, then to go on the harder tyre to the end of the afternoon. But ultimately, with 4 DRS zones here, your race strategy is very much going to be dictated by the DRS train you find yourself in. But hopefully that has helped you out once again. Like I said, a massive thank you to everyone for the support so far. Let me know how you get on as well. I've been reading all your comments saying you did really well in your first race and things like that, so I'm super happy to see that these are working. And I will leave you guys then with a hot lap here from Albert Park.